Hi everyone, so we're going to continue on in our room design and we're going to make the windows and doors for your projects. Now I know everybody has different windows and doors, but hopefully you made a sketch of them here so at least you have something to reference, or you can look at them somehow and get some measurements for them so that you can recreate them. If you want to get rid of certain windows and make other windows to go into the spaces, you can do that too. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to show you sort of the tips on how to make this window, which is a 6/1. Some of you might have windows that are 1/1s and you won't have as much to do, but this is probably the most complicated type of window that you'll do. So I'm going to show that, but through the tutorial you should get an idea of how to do this. Now my window is 2 feet 6 inches wide and 4 feet tall. And I also have a little drawing. We have the rails and stiles here, and then also this interior part that makes the 6 lights over 1 called the mutton. We're going to recreate that in the model, and here I have one that's already made, but for these purposes I'm going to show you how to do it today. One of the things we want to get rid of first is these guidelines. They're very distracting. We don't need them anymore. What we're going to do is we're just going to have to erase the lines, and the way that you can do that is just to take the eraser tool and mouse over all the lines, and that just gets rid of them. The width of the window is 2 feet 6 inches wide, and the depth of our wall is 5 inches wide. So what we're going to start off with is basically a rectangle that matches that. So I'm going to click the rectangle tool, and I'm going to click and drag, and in the lower right hand box there I'm going to type the overall width of the window first, which is 2 feet, and that's the comma, then a space and 6 inches, which is a shift and quotation marks, and then I'm going to put the comma in and I'm going to type the depth, and the depth is 5 inches. So there we go. So here is the base of our window, and then I'm going to use the push-pull tool over here, and I'm going to push and pull that up 4 feet. And I'm going to hit enter, and that will lock it in. So right here is my window, or at least the base of my window. So what I'm going to want to do now is I'm going to want to divide this up. And if I look at my example, and as I explained before, these are really 2 sashes here. So these rails and stiles are about the same width. I'm going to use 2 inches for mine, but because the upper sash is kind of hidden in back of the front sash, you don't see the 2 inches. So I'm going to show you how to represent that here on the window. Remember, when we take our pencil tool, if we mouse down the edge and it turns to a cyan dot, we know that we're in the middle of this whole line. So I'm going to go here with my pencil tool. I'm going to click and drag across to the other cyan dot, and that way I know, even though I'm in perspective, that I have actually divided this rectangle in half. The next thing I'm going to do is use this offset tool. The offset tool recognizes the shape and allows us to pull a certain distance away. I'm going to click on the edge and I'm going to start to pull in, and I'm going to type in 2 inches. And then, because SketchUp remembers, I'm going to go over here to the other one and I'm going to double click, and it does exactly the same thing on the bottom as it did on the top. So now I have to go in and divide that, and I'm going to do that with the pencil tool, and I'm going to go to the end point here and I'm going to draw down, and I'm going to do it over on the other side and draw down, and now I'm just going to erase that middle line. So here we have my bottom sash and we have the upper sash. Now it looks a little funny, but it's still working the way it should. The next thing we have to do is we have to divide this upper line into 3 segments. That could involve a lot of math and get kind of confusing, but SketchUp is really, really good for this, because what it'll do is divide it for you. And to do that, using the pointer tool, you're going to click the top segment there to select it. Then on your 2-button mouse, you're going to right click and you're going to click divide. And when you do that, you can see that it pulls whatever sizes or segments you want to divide that to. Now we want to do 3, and so here you can see that it's doing that. It says 3 segments, or you can even type in 3 and you can hit enter. And then if you click away from that and you click on that again, you can see that what it's done is it's divided that line up into exactly 3 segments, and that's what we needed it to do. So then we're going to take our pencil tool and we're going to go to the end of that one of those first segments, to the end point, right? Because we need that. And we're going to click on it and drag down. Then we're going to mouse over to the other side, get to the end point there, click, and drag down. And now we know we have 3 equal segments, except we know that this is a 6/1, not a 3/1. We're going to take our pencil tool again and mouse along on the far edge to get that cyan point. One of the things that SketchUp doesn't like is if I were to click here and drag it across and click on the other side. It needs you to go to each point that you want to go to and click. When you go over it again, you're going to come to an end point and you're going to click again and go across, and then click again and go across. It does not like it if you cross lines. It can kind of mess up some of the geometry. To keep a best practice, we want to keep it this way. If I mouse over these, you can see that we have the 6 segments all separated out. Now what I'm going to want to do is make the mutton part, this interior great looking thing that goes in on the inside. To do that, I'm going to use that offset tool again, and this time I'm going to pull it in a 1/2 inch. And so I'm going to type in the fraction, 1/2 inch. I'm going to hit enter. Because SketchUp remembers, I can just mouse over to the other ones and double click, and it will automatically do the other sections for me. Now I want to get rid of those middle lines that I drew to divide it up. So I'm going to click the eraser tool and get rid of that. Here's our window, right? But we can make this look even more realistic. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the push-pull tool, and we're going to push the window panes in 2.5 inches, because we know that the thickness of this is 5 inches. So we want to make it look a little bit realistic by actually push and pulling these surfaces. We're going to go ahead and we're going to push in 2 space 1/4 of an inch. And again, because SketchUp remembers, we're just going to double click on the other panes and have it do the same thing. Now on my picture and on a real window, this mutton area would actually be set back a little bit. So I'm going to do that with this too. And I'm going to set this back 1.5 inches. Unfortunately, SketchUp doesn't do the same thing for you on the back. So we're going to have to do it on the back also. So just bear with me and watch as I do it again. So now we're going to add the glass so that we can see through it. To do that, we're going to go up to the Windows menu and we're going to select Materials. And this is your materials window. Most of you already know about this. This is where you can pick different types of materials that you might want to add to your model. You can pick colors and all kinds of different things that you might want to use in your model. For this, we're going to be using glass and mirrors. So this happens to be one of my favorite glass colors. I'm going to go ahead and select that and click on all of the window panels. Now, in order to really get that to be translucent, you have to do both sides of the window, and now it makes it so that you can actually see through the window. The very last step we're going to do is we're going to group this window so that when we go to put it into the model, it doesn't stick to the geometry. Triple click the window, right click, and say Make Group. Now, if you have more than one window or more than one type of window, let's say I had 3 of these windows in my model, there's a little trick I can do so that I can use it again anytime I want to, even if I start a new model. That's called the component window. I'm going to click on Window, under the Materials window, the Components window. And if you click the Home button here, you can see every component that is in the model. So Chris is actually a component. This is another window that I added. The component window allows you to use the same thing over and over again. However, if you make a change in one, it's going to make a change in all. But if you know you're not going to make any changes to it, it's always good to put it here in the Components window. We'll be using the Components window again when we go to the warehouse. In order to add it to the Components window, I'm going to right-click it. I'm going to say Make Component. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to give it the size and then the name. This window is a 2-foot, 6-inch wide by 4-foot, 6/1 window. And I'm just going to leave it as is, and I'm going to click Create. And you'll see that when I do that, it's going to add it right here into my Components window. And anytime I want to use that window, all I have to do is bring it out.